right into script writing. You know, who amongst you have written a script before?
Script, like what's a script?
Oh, okay. Script writing is that writing form, like storytelling form. You know, when you want to transform your story into, it could be radio, it could be stage, it could be TV, it could be films. So what you do if you have a story is scripted. That's when you give dialogue, your characters, you create your characters and give them dialogue, the things they say, the description of your story, how you move it along, because you can't just say in your story, because if when you write a story and say so person from this and that move to this place and all of that, the person has characters that they interact with. What are the things they say to each other? What are the description? What are the things you describe in your dialogue? So that process of putting all of this together, giving each person what to say, giving them action, what to do in your story, that process is called scripting. When you script your story, even if it's a stage play, you have to script it and say, this is what this character said at this location, at this stage, and all of that. So the process of doing that is called scripting. So there's scripting for radio, there's scripting for documentaries, there's scripting for stage, there's scripting for movies, even short films, you have to script it. You know, sometimes they call it for films, they call it screenplay. You screenplay your story. Sometimes you can write a good story, but you don't know how to screenplay. You give it to someone to screenplay for you, where you get your credit for the story and another person gets credit for the screenplay. So what we're going to look at is the act of script writing, writing a script. Now, I tell people that what makes a good film is mostly the dialogue and your description. Because like most of the things that we see in a film, we have seen them in real life. Some of these things we're involved in ourselves. If you say there's a situation where two people sit down and they're talking in a restaurant, of course, I'm sure you have been in a restaurant with another person discussing. If you say two people are in the sitting room or are inside the car, you have been inside the car with someone. So what makes it, compelling? What makes it different from what you would do ordinarily? The dialogue, the things that you will say with that person in a restaurant or inside the car. If you say that same thing in a film, in a script, you will look at it like, that's what I would do. That's what I would say. But in script writing, you say those things or you do those things that you would do in real life. If it was you, you say them creatively, meaning the same thing, but creatively. So in words, I'm not talking about vocabulary. A lot of people mistake that you have to have big words and all of that. No, it has to be simple words for communication. It has to be simple words that people can actually understand. And same thing goes, for like say poetry, performance poetry and all of that. The reason why a lot of people don't like poetry is that a lot of poets believe that they have to use big words. That's how to describe themselves as, in their poem. Now, imagine a layman, some ordinary person inside your audience, and you're performing poetry to them. They are struggling to get the meaning of a word that you have just said. They have not gotten it. You have moved to another word. You have moved to another one. You have moved to another one. They just lose the interest and they're no longer interested. They start pressing their phones. So you will lose them. So same thing applies in script writing. You don't say because you know how to write, you can write big English. You now decide to start writing, and all those big grammar that people have to look for dictionary and start looking for the meaning. No, because you want to entertain people. So you use words, simple words, but that carries several meanings. So when writing your dialogue, you don't say those things. As a creative writer, you say those things that you are saying that you will say ordinarily. You say them in creative ways. That you know, there are some stories, there are some films that you have seen, and you can always remember the dialogue, what this person said to this person, because they were nice dialogue. They sound really nice, and you want to just remember it. Okay, let me give you an example of this dialogue that I'm talking about. There's one of my stories that where I said, I'll just describe the situation. The guy, it was just a simple guy wearing a t-shirt, was about entering an expensive restaurant, and he met this lady at the entrance. Apparently, she's the governor's daughter. So he tried talking with this the lady, and the lady flared up, as in, who do you think you are? You think you can just talk to anybody? As in, don't you know who I am? As in, she started ranting and all of that. And the guy was like, hey, I'm sorry. And he went to see. So our friend was waiting in the restaurant with her, and she was still ranting and visibly angry. And she went to the friend, can you imagine that? All this riffraff and all of that, complaining to the friend. And the friend was like, who was that? He said, that guy, that stupid guy. And the friend was like, what? That guy, you don't know who that guy is? He said, who is he? That's like the biggest boy in town. That's the friend just went about the guy and all of that. That's the and so she now realized, you mean that's the guy? And he was dressing that simple. Now, moments later, the guy's friends, the boys, they arrived with their cars. The people that came with Lamborghini, big car, and they just came to sit with him. He's the boss. They just came to sit with him. So when they finished their meeting and they were about leaving, the lady now went and now rushed out to meet them, just to try to get this other guy to apologize and probably, and so, and she came to the guy and they stopped, and she was now like, sorry about earlier, I didn't something, I'm sorry, I didn't know something. The guy said, no, it's okay. The guy said, back then you look like a very delicious meal and I was hungry, but now I lost my appetite. So the lady was now trying to, as the guy wanted to start moving, the lady now brought out her card and say, here, my card, in case you ever get hungry again. The guy just looked at her and smiled and started walking away. One of the guy's boys now collected the card and just whispered to the girl that he doesn't eat junks. Did you get the story? One of the guys, he said, my card. The guy said, sorry, the other time you look like a delicious meal and I was hungry, but right now I lost my appetite. So the lady brought out her card and said, here, my card, in case you ever get hungry again. The guy just looked at her and smiled and started walking away. As he was walking away, she was still holding the card. One of his boys now collected the card and whispered to the lady that he doesn't eat junks. So do you understand the lines? What do you understand by the lines? I want to. Your mic is, unmute yourself, Mofa.
Yeah, always is, exactly. The guy was considered poor, whereas he was actually a rich guy, and in his richness, he was trying to look normal, not exhibiting his riches.
So what I'm trying to say about dialogue is that you can see the line. He could have just said, sorry, I'm no longer interested, or I was interested in you, but now I'm no longer interested. See what he used. He said, back then you look like a delicious meal and I was hungry, but right now I lost my appetite. So meaning I'm no longer interested. Then the lady now brought her card and said, okay, here's my card. You can give me a call in case you ever get hungry again. Of course, we know they are not talking about food.
Exactly.
But the guy now said he doesn't eat junks. You can see that insult to the lady.
To the lady.
Yes, he doesn't eat junk. So to the guy now, you are junks. And you know what they say about junk food and all of that. It's not really healthy and all of that. So that's the kind of, that's the idea I'm trying to give you guys concerning dialogue. When you're writing your dialogue, don't make it so ordinary. Imagine, like, if it was real life. I know, I'm not interested. No, the guy collect the card. He's not interested. Leave him alone. That's what it will be. But in script writing, you try to be creative so that when your audience watch your film, they can remember some of these lines. That's what makes for a creative writer. You don't just rush and say because you have stories, you just want to start putting pen to paper and all of that. So think about your, character, your dialogue. Your dialogue can be what will set you apart from the rest. That when people hear your story, when people watch your film, they can say, I know who writes like this. Your dialogue can be your signature. And good thing is that some of you write poems. You can use the idea, that knowledge of poetry that you write, you can let it come in your scripting. And there's a format, when writing a script, which is more like universal. There are a lot of apps out there, that you can use in script writing. The number one app that script writers use is called Final Draft. It's expensive, but I tell people it is not about the apps that you use in writing your scripts. It's about the content of your scripts. A lot of people just worry about all these things. The thing is, majority of the people will not even get to see the script, except your actors, the producer, the director, and all of that. What the people see eventually is the film. So why put more effort in? I'm not saying don't use, writing apps. There are lots of them that you can find out there. There's fading, there's, lots of them out there. But worry more about the content of your story, about your script. So we are going to look at the acceptable format that is being used in script writing. One of the things that you must learn in script writing is that you must be able to format your script very well, where you describe your situation, you describe your scene, you tell us the time of the day that is being set in. And if you have written before, like that's where you use if you are writing a fading, when something fits in, maybe a camera just moving from one place to the other, not going to the character. Some directors don't even like you writing description and telling them camera move from this, camera angle and all of that. Some directors don't like that. So, but if you are writing your script and you want to say scene, mostly scene numbering. A lot of people don't use scene numbering again. Scene 1, scene 2. You just use, if your scene is being set outside, that is exterior. You use exterior. If it is set in the morning or in the afternoon, you can use morning or just use day. If it is day, you just put exterior day. Then the last is the location. Where is it taking place? Is it at a car park? Is it at the garden? Is it in front of the house? Is it in front of the gate or something? Exterior day, in front of the gate, football field, whatever. That's the format that you come in. If you are fading it, you say fading, or if you are cutting it, you say cutting. Cutting is just film. Camera just show the person's face and they start talking. Fading is you are fading in. We are not seeing anybody talking. You can be fading from the wall, to now come down to the distance. But you just write that, it's permissible. Just write it. If it's fading, you write fading. And if it's cutting, you just cutting and you start talking, you cutting. Then you now describe your scene. You give us that format. If it's interior, if it's happening inside the room or in the parlor, in the kitchen, you put interior. And it's represented by saying I'm going to share, I'm going to send to the group an example of a script, one of my scripts, an excerpt, so that you guys can look at and, you can help you in your script writing. If it's interior, you write interior. And of course, you don't write it in full, you shorten it. Exterior is represented with EXT. Exterior, EXT. If it is day, you write it fully day, then you write the other one. If it's interior, INT. INT, interior. That interior includes, even inside a car is interior. Parlor, sitting room, toilet, interior. Those are interior. That one will come first, then the time of the day, then the location. So you get it now. Interior or exterior, time of day, location. If it's a saloon, location, saloon. Time of day, day. If it's day, you put day. If it's night, you put night. Then after that, then you now come down with your scene description. You will describe what the action that will be taking place in the scene. Interior. You say, an example of interior is Mofa is sitting on a couch. That you are describing it. Mofa is sitting on a couch reading a magazine. Her phone rings. She picks it up to check the caller, look at it, and drops the phone. Goes back to her reading. You have described the action that will be taking place in that scene. So after you have written your format, exterior or interior, day and location, then you now describe the action that will be taking place. So like I said, Mofa is, reading a magazine, phone rings, picks it up, and checks the call, and she hisses and drops the phone. That shows that she's not ready to pick the call. Now you can show, because there are some scenes that may not even have a dialogue. You can show that the phone rings again. Caller calls back again. Still in your description. Calls back again. Mofa picks the call. And this time around, she cuts the call. Maybe the first time, what you did was silence the call. But this time around, you cut the call. And then probably switch off the phone and bang it on the chair. It has described what you are doing. Then goes back to our reading. And what you now do at that point, you now fade out. If that's all the things that will happen in that scene, you just fade out. Maybe camera moves to the wall, fade out from there. Or you just cut. If you're going to return back to that scene, you can cut away from there. And now when you're cutting away, maybe you're cutting away to check the other caller. The person that was calling, you cut away from there, go to the other caller to see the reaction of the caller. It can be anything. You can cut into the next scene and all of that. So, but the most important thing is that the formatting of your scripts, because that's what will show that this is actually, if it's a movie script, if it's a radio drama, the formatting is what will determine if it's a radio drama. Now, formatting for these things are different. Now, this thing, if you are to format this scene into a radio drama, the formatting will be different, because you cannot tell whether you can actually tell, you can actually see right day and night and all of that in radio. But what you must do is that you have to write something. You have to impute sound, things that will determine actually if it's morning. Imagine if you now hear cockcrow, what time of the day would that signify for a radio drama?
5:30 a.m.
Or simply morning?
Morning.
Aha. Now, imagine now that the phone rings. There are some things that you may not be able to do in radio. You cannot, because we cannot see her pick the call and silence it. You cannot see, we can hear the phone ring, but we cannot see her silence it, or we cannot see her cut it. So you understand now? So the formatting is different, but since we're just focusing on formatting script writing for TV, for movies, for short film. That's why we are working with this type of format. So I would, part of the assignment, you're going to write a story, like I said, and part of the assignment is that you're going to write a scene from that story. Any of the story that you are coming up with, you are going to show a scene that you have written with this format that we have just worked on. How to write it, you just write a scene for me so that I'll check, whether you understand the formatting properly, and if you don't, we'll still work on it. But I expect you guys to do it. I'm still going to drop the excerpt of my script for you guys to look at. But I think that's about script writing, except you want to. And some of these softwares, script writing software comes with the format. The format is already there. You have the exterior, your interior, but you just fix it there. But if you're writing with your computer or your phone, or you're writing on paper and all of that, these are the things that you need to know. The right formatting to use when writing a script. So I think we have come to the end of this session. So, but I would like to have a Q&A, a question and answer session. Whatever questions you have, let's hear them, and I'll attempt to answer them as much as I can.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't do literature, but I just felt the little one I did. I think I ended literature in Form 3, and what remained in my mind is rhythmic pattern. So must I necessarily always want to follow the rhythmic pattern when I'm writing my poems? Like you want to end with la 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 e e e.
No. You don't have to. You don't have to. Poetry is like an expression of your inner thoughts. So it depends. You don't owe your audience. It is the way you try to express it, however it comes. There are different forms. Poetry is vast. There are different type of, poetry writing. There's haiku, there's this, there's that you can write. But the one that you want to write that will express, especially if you're doing spoken word, it's only when you're doing spoken word you want to write and make sure that the word sounds, and sounds nice, or maybe you want to now want your audience to enjoy it. So if you're doing, you don't have to at all if you're writing, poetry. So let's focus more on the, storytelling and script writing, because the thing is, the idea is the fact that you can write poems, that you have written poems, it will help even in your dialogue. And that was why I gave example of that kind of dialogue that I wrote, that you can use your experience, the idea you have in writing poems, to write your script, so that it will not turn out to be ordinary conversation that two people will have. And that was why I gave the example of that other one, that the guy could have said, I was interested in you at first, but the way you behaved, I didn't like it, and now I'm no longer interested. He could have just said that plain and simple. But he decided to use, I was hungry, you look like, and I was hungry, but right now I lost my appetite. He doesn't eat junk and all of that. So you can use that. That shows that, no, this is a good script. This is a good story, a good dialogue. So that everybody watching, they will not say, and that's what I would have said now if I was in that shoe. They will look at it like, wow, yeah, that's nice, because it's a film. You want to entertain. So that's why you need to put all of those into consideration. You don't just write, but you write for a purpose. So, and I don't know, you guys have your stories. I don't want to tell you any story to write. You have your story that you're thinking you want to make into a film. So that story is what I expect you to maybe write like 200 words. Then from that story, you now do a scene from that story using the formatting that we have just talked about. So, we'll look at it. I don't know whether I should even drop my own excerpt first, because that would sound like an expo for you people. If if I drop my formatting, you guys will see how to format and